Good afternoon. I'm Dalen Fortney, and I manage the social media for the Managing Partner Forum. Welcome to the MPF webinar series, a series of quarterly one-hour panel discussions on important leadership topics. These programs are moderated by John Remsen Jr., President and CEO of the Managing Partner Forum and President of the Remsen Group. Today's session is what every managing partner needs to know about lawyer rankings, listings, and directories. And our panel brings 4 different perspectives about how to make sense of it all. Handouts for today's session are found in the GoToWebinar window on the right of your screen. They're also hosted at managingpartnerforum.org. Throughout the session, feel free to type your questions into the chat window, and questions will be answered as time allows. Finally, we'd like to remind you that today's session is recorded and will be archived on the Managing Partner Forum website. Thank you again for joining us. Over to you, John.
Well, thank you, Dalen. We appreciate your setup, and welcome everybody to our 3rd Managing Partner Forum webinar on topics important to leading a successful law firm. Today's program, we look at the vexing topic for many managing partners of law firm rankings, listings, directories, and how do we manage this as a firm. And we've got a great panel we'll be learning from this afternoon, and we appreciate your being with us. We're going to look at the proliferation of directories. There's many out there, hundreds and hundreds, and they continue to grow. We'll try to help you assess which ones are appropriate for your firm's lawyers. Talk a little bit about a strategy you might want to put in play to make sure you're achieving the maximum return on your investment of time and money invested in these rankings and directories. And also joining us are the managing editors of Best Lawyers and Chambers, 2 of the leading directories, who are going to tell us a little bit about how their firms do their thing and how you can work to get your firm included in these very desirable directories. Most of you know me. I'm John Remsen. I run the Managing Partner Forum, also run the Remsen Group. We do consulting work with smaller and mid-sized law firms, strategic planning, firm retreats, and the like. I do a lot of speaking and writing, and hopefully have met many of you on today's call. Our panel, and I'm introducing our panel alphabetically by last name. So we have our man first, Toby Eccleshaw. And Toby is the managing editor of Chambers USA. They're London-based. And Toby's relatively new to this role. He's been with Chambers for a while and has just assumed the managing editor role within the past few months. So Toby, welcome. And is there anything beyond what we see on the screen that you would like our audience to know about you?
No, that pretty much sums up everything quite nicely. Thank you very much, John. Delighted to be here and look forward to the session.
Well, Toby, thank you. We're delighted to have you. Welcome. Joining Toby and myself is Vivian Hood. And Vivian is among the CEO owners of Jaffe, a law firm marketing PR entity, do a lot of work in social media and also in the world of law firm directories. Vivian had her own consultancy before joining Jaffe and went to the University of Maryland. Vivian, welcome, and anything you would like to add about your background?
Thanks, John. Just to say that we have been tracking rankings for law firms, all these kinds of lists for about 10 years now, and we have a lot of experience, and so we are able to provide insights on media relations, branding, all of the full services that a law firm might need for marketing and branding and PR. I've been with Jaffe for over 20 years, so I've been doing this a while.
Welcome, Vivian. Thank you. We've been friends for, I think, that long as well. So glad to have you on today's panel. And joining Vivian and Toby and myself, as well as Ariel Lapiano. And Ariel is Director of Communications, Public Relations at Paul Hastings. Paul Hastings is one of the world's largest law firms at 900 lawyers, 21 office locations. And Ariel, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role at Paul Hastings?
Thank you so much, John. Part of my role is overseeing the request for submissions, and in addition to what I do during the day at Paul Hastings, I'm also the chair of the law firm Media Professionals, also known as all LFMPs, Committee on Submissions. It's a committee that's only about a year and a half old and was formed to address what we're talking about here today, the proliferation of submission requests and how firms should respond to that.
Excellent. Ariel, thank you. And I think your perspective is going to be particularly insightful to the law firm leaders on our call today, because you're in their space and obviously doing a good job at Paul Hastings trying to sort through all this. So really looking forward to your contributions. And I love your picture, by the way. I like that look over the shoulder thing you got going on.
Thank you.
Also, our final panelist, but certainly not our least panelist, is Elizabeth Pettit. And Elizabeth is the managing editor and research director at Best Lawyers. And most of you, I'm sure, on the call are familiar with Best Lawyers. And they partner with U.S. News and World Report. And in her spare time, Elizabeth does some stuff at the University of South Carolina, which sounds like a lot of fun. So Elizabeth, welcome. And what else would you like to share with our group before we kick things off?
Well, good afternoon, John. Thank you so much for having me. Very glad to be here. I have been with Best Lawyers for 8 years now, and I do come into the position from a very strong academic research background, as you can see. And yes, in my part-time spare time, I am an adjunct faculty member and teach classical art history at the University of South Carolina. So thanks for having me.
Very good, and thank you, Elizabeth, for being with us. And most of our panel, we did this presentation for the Atlanta chapter of the Legal Marketing Association last summer, and it was very, very well received. The feedback was fantastic, and the marketers loved it. And I thought this might be an appropriate topic as well to share with the managing partners, particularly smaller firms. You don't have an in-house marketer trying to figure it out. I thought this was a particularly important topic as well for managing partners in addition to marketing people. As I look at today's registration list, about, I'd say, 3/4 of our audience are managing partners. About 1/4 are marketing folks. And so we'll try to gear our perspectives and our comments to that audience. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to type them in. Dalen provided the instructions a little earlier. But you should be able to type in some questions. We'll keep an eye on those and try to answer them best we can through the course of the session. Today's presentation will be archived and made available on the Managing Partner Forum website and on our YouTube channel as well. So why don't we kick off by coming back to Vivian, who mentioned that there's a heck of a lot of these rankings and directories and listings out there. Vivian, what are you guys finding at Jaffe? I know you guys keep an eye on this stuff. What do we got going on?
Thanks, John. I appreciate that you made the distinction that our audience is mostly comprised of managing partners, because I think it's important that this group understand that there is so much out there. And we have been, as I mentioned, I think tracking for over about 10 years the variety of different lists and rankings and nomination submission opportunities. And currently we monitor and track for about 1,200. And that's enormous. That's a huge amount. And what it does not include are all of those that are pay to play. So we don't bother with those. In fact, we almost, I can almost say, most of the time, 99% of the time, we advise our clients not to pursue those kinds of opportunities because there really are so many others. And we'll get into a little bit more, later in our discussion about the different types. But yeah, 1,200. So that's a decent amount.
1,200 and growing.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got into this business in the mid-'80s, Martindale-Hubbell was king. And there wasn't much beyond Martindale-Hubbell. So just in 25, 30 years, the proliferation of these rankings and directories has been incredible. I think much of it is a play to lawyer ego and not a wise investment of your marketing and business development dollars. But we'll come to that. you know, as we sort through the 1,200, some are obviously better than others in terms of the methodology, in terms of who reads and consults these things as they look for outside counsel. And I'll turn to you, Ariel, and ask if you had to identify the, quote, top 5 directories for business law firms, who'd you put on your list?
Thank you so much, John. Wouldn't it be nice if it was that easy?
Yes, but it's not, huh?
It's just not. It's just not as simple as that, particularly with the 1,200 and growing number that Vivian was kind enough to share with us. The way that I sort of look at it is that just like every firm might have or should have a different list of top 5, let's say, target clients, they should have a different list of top target accolades. And that's because your firm's individual practice strengths, lawyer strengths, type of work, regional spread are all things that typically influence whether you can do well, win in certain awards and rankings. And sometimes that target list might also change from year to year based on how you're doing at your firm. I know that we've seen that at Paul Hastings, and our target list changes sometimes year to year, and our target list wouldn't make sense for a regional firm in, let's say, Illinois. So it might not be a satisfying answer, but that's the hard truth.
So the answer, Vivian, is, or Ariel, is it depends. You sound like a lawyer. Vivian, what are your thoughts in terms of generally the top 5 directories that business firms should be looking at?
Well, I think, I mean, I 100% agree with Ariel, but I want to point out that obviously we have Chambers and Best Lawyers on this call for a reason, and that's because they are considered, among the top 2, and or they are considered among the top as 2 of the best in the in these types of surveys and lists, and that's because of the methodologies that they use and how they approach it. And they'll get into that later on in our call, but I think that the point that Ariel makes about it really depends. You have to look at, are the business journals, the local business journals in each market. If you're in a market that that's an important publication for you, then looking at what lists they have in the upcoming year, which they do change. They don't always run and repeat the same ones every year, but those would be target ones possibly for you. You also have to look at if there's a particular industry and then go in that direction as well. So it's not so easy to identify top 5, but certainly, we have on our call the top 2 that I would absolutely include, and so we'll hear more from them in a little bit.
Yes, we will, and I'm gonna jump in here and share what I think the top 5 are generally for business law firms. And I did a call around a couple of years ago. I was writing up a paper trying to assess which directories matter, which ones don't. And here's what I came up with. And these are generalities, and I agree with everything you say, Ariel and Vivian, that it really does depend on your target audience and what you're trying to do as a firm. But generally speaking, for business firms, Chambers, Best Lawyers, Benchmark Litigation, Legal 500, Law Dragon. I throw those out for your consideration. AVO, interesting things going on over there. There's a lot of directories out there, and I think it's important that you sort through and figure out what's appropriate for your law firm. Who's your target audience? What do they read? Do they look at directories? If so, which ones? Talk to your clients, I think, is a great way to evaluate where your firm should be. As Vivian mentions, we do have the editors of 2 of the leading directories out there. I think they'd be on everybody's short list, Chambers USA and Best Lawyers. And I'm going to ask the representatives of these 2 organizations on our call to talk to us a little bit about their directory and how they go about their work and anything else they might like to share. And I'll first turn to you, Elizabeth, at Best Lawyers. to tell us a little bit about your space, what makes you different than other directories, how you go about determining who the best lawyers are.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. So Best Lawyers was founded in 1981 by two Harvard Law School grads who went to school very interested in the legal profession and did practice for a short time before realizing that their passion was more in research and publication than in practicing law itself. So in the early 80s, they looked at the landscape of America and found a need to help business clients find lawyers. And so the way they started the whole process, and it's the same methodology that we use today, is to ask the best lawyers who they think their top peers are in the field. So similarly, if you had a friend that you respected who is a doctor, you might go to them and say, you aren't the type of doctor I need, but who would you recommend in this specific field? So our Best Lawyers publication is strictly peer review, and that's one of the main differentiators between us and our competitors, is it is only what the recognized lawyers, the feedback they have to give on their peers. And that methodology has not changed in 30 years. We still contact lawyers every year to get their feedback. And because of that, there's also a very low burden on firms to participate because there is no submission for CVs, work histories. We don't count how many people nominate a lawyer. It's really the feedback from the peers that matters most. We did have a major change in our business model. In 2009, we partnered with U.S. News and World Report, who are known for their rankings primarily of colleges, hospitals, law schools, and they came to us and asked if we would be interested in partnering to rank law firms. So beginning in 2009, we started ranking law firms in America, and that is a little bit of a different process. We do collect materials from firms, but again, the basis of the rankings is dependent on what peers have to say about firms' work and what clients have to say. And that is the, 3-minute pitch on Best Lawyers, and always happy to take any questions.
Ariel, excellent. And so it's the lawyer that's nominated as a best lawyer. It's not the firm.
Correct.
Or do you do both?
So it all starts with the lawyer. If there is a firm out there looking for recognition in U.S. News Best Lawyers, Best Law Firms, we start with the lawyer first. And we take nominations from anyone. They can be clients, it can be peers, and it can be marketing departments. We don't track who the nomination, or we track, but it doesn't weigh who the nomination comes from. Once they're in our system, things are good, and then it's really just what their peers have to say about their caliber of work that matters the most.
Okay, thank you. Tomi, let me come to you and ask you to share with us a little bit about Chambers and its history and what distinguishes it from the other directories out there.
Yeah, thanks, John. So Chambers USA has been operating since about 2003. That was when our first guide came out, although we've been ranking lawyers and law firms in the UK and more globally since the early 90s. So it's a guide to clients seeking legal counsel in the United States. We rank lawyers and law firms by location and practice area with ranking tables in all 50 states. So, as I said, we also produce guides more globally, so these include Asia, Europe, UK, and Latin America, as well as a number of other publications. But we'll focus on the US side of things here. So we have a team of approximately 150 researchers, which includes some qualified lawyers, and around a quarter of them are purely dedicated to researching the US market during the 6 months of US research each year. Their job is to speak to lawyers, clients, other research leads about the market and quality of work being done. They then work with me and my deputy editors in constructing our rankings table. So there are a number of different things that we look for. We'll go into a bit more detail later on, I imagine, but
Yes.
essentially we're looking at work, we're looking at work and external feedback. So that external feedback includes peer feedback and client feedback. But for the most important thing for us is always going to be client feedback. We want to reflect the market as it is in the present day, and for us there's no better way to do that than by speaking to clients who work with these law firms day to day. So the question that people often ask me are, what are the benefits of being ranked in the guide? So based on our research, in-house counsel primarily use chambers for around 4 different reasons. Firstly, to locate specialist legal expertise in an unfamiliar practice area. Secondly, to source legal expertise in unfamiliar jurisdictions. Also to find global legal representation. And the final way is just to obtain an independent view of the law firms that they currently use. So Chambers is essentially a testament to, the Chambers ranking is a testament to the excellence of your services, and this is communicated through the distribution of the guides and by the thousands of visits per month that we have to the Chambers website. We provide these complimentary printed guides to in-house counsel free of charge, and it can also all be accessed online. But yeah, so the methodologies we'll speak about a bit later, but most important thing for us is always going to be the client feedback.
It's a very different methodology than Best Lawyers uses, and none are right or wrong, it's just different. And thank you for sort of sharing that, Toby. We appreciate it. Both fine directories, obviously, and I'm going to ask you to drill down now on our next slide to tell us, can a lawyer, and I'll come back to you, Toby, if a lawyer is interested in getting in Chambers, can they influence the process? And if so, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to do that is really just to get involved with us in the process and get involved in our research. And there are 2 main ways that firms do this. They're able to provide a written submission, which tells us about the key areas of focus for the practice group and gives us an idea of the main individuals involved. So they're able to provide 20 work highlights, either publishable, confidential, or a combination of the 2 to demonstrate their strengths of the practice. So the other way is to provide up to 20 referees who they're able to attest to the firm's qualities and recent work. We would always encourage...
20 references, Toby, is that correct?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
20 references when I submit to you.
20. Yeah, 20. And it's usually going to be clients. It can be a combination of clients and other professionals who work with the firms. The key thing for us is that they have recent experience working with the firms. It's not really going to be that important for us to hear from someone who went to law school with the client if it stopped there. Sorry, with the lawyer, if it stopped there, the relationship stopped there. We want to speak to as many people who are involved in the day-to-day of these legal matters and are able to provide a comprehensive analysis of the firm's strengths in certain areas and tell us about the lawyers that are involved and the key attributes that they show in their work. So,
now,
I mean,
there are certain times of year, correct, that you open up submission, and does it vary by state, by practice area? How can I learn about when you accept submissions, and where do I get the paperwork and the background on how to go about it?
Yeah, certainly. So the research process runs from July until January, and submissions are open from June onwards. All of the information about deadlines is available on our website. We've got a research schedule that goes into detail and shows you which practice areas the submissions are due for, when the submissions are due to particular practice areas and particular states. It does vary, but the information is all there.
Okay. Any tips you might offer folks on our call to putting together a successful submission?
Yeah, so the two main things that we will look for in the submission are work highlights. You want to show your best work to us. So you will show the headline deals. You'll be including them, the headline matters that everyone at the firm is talking about, and everyone outside of the firm is talking about. But you also want to give us a bit of a sense of depth within the firm. You want to give an opportunity to up and comers. You want to give an opportunity to those other members of the team who perhaps don't have the market presence that the heads of practice might have externally. So you want to do that. You want to think very carefully about which referees you're putting forward to our researchers. We'd love to speak to CEOs and general counsels, and we're very fortunate in that we do actually speak to a large number of them. But the reality is that many of them are just too busy to respond to our requests, and we completely understand that. So we want to make sure that you're going to be including people who are going to respond to our emails, but people who are higher up enough that they'd be able to attest to your qualities as a firm. And the other thing I'd just say is it's got to be recent and in-depth experience, because, as I mentioned earlier, we want to reflect the market as it is now. We don't want to our rankings just to be based on reputation, but we want to reflect the people who are doing the work and the people that the clients will go to.
Now, there is a perception, Toby, among many that this is big law stuff, that really you're looking for the biggest law firms in the world to showcase in chambers. But I hear directly from you guys, no, we're very much looking for smaller and mid-sized law firms who are doing big things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, size doesn't really matter to us. We're interested in quality. We're always trying to look at things from the client's perspective. So if size isn't important for the clients, then it's not going to be important for us. We're very aware that boutiques and smaller law firms, they contain some of the best lawyers out there and generate some of the best legal work in the market. And I think over time our processes have evolved to try to accommodate as many of these really excellent small firms and boutiques for rankings consideration as possible. So this means that we're not necessarily just going by what other firms are saying, because larger firms can be very dismissive of small firms. But we go back to the clients and we say to them, this is a small boutique, does that matter to you? And most of the time they say no.
Interesting.
John, this is Vivian. Can I add something to that, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I just want to point out that we had a two-person law firm come to us several years ago, with the request to help them get visible in chambers. And we knew from our experience that sometimes this takes a while. So we prepared everything year one, submitted it, did not get selected. They weren't ranked at all. Don't give up. Try again. Submitted, didn't get selected the second year. We encouraged them that there is still value. We had continued feedback from chambers as to what happened. Maybe it was out of their control. They could submit the most fantastic results, but like John and Toby are saying, is if the clients are not responding to the request in a either timely manner or in an in-depth manner, they might not have enough to go by. So the third year that we tried, the firm did get ranked, and they're just two attorneys. So I think that's important for this audience to hear, is that one, it can take multiple efforts, and don't give up after the first time. These are very comprehensive nomination submissions, and they take a couple dozen of hours to prepare thoroughly. So organization is key. And then the other thing is the deadlines. We advise our clients that ideally we should be starting 6 to 8 weeks in advance of the deadline to get the nomination prepared as thoroughly as possible. So sometimes we've had clients come to us and say we need help and the deadline is next week. It is almost impossible to get all of the comprehensive details that are needed to complete the submission in that time frame. So I think that's a good point for managing partners on this call to understand that these do take time. They do have to be organized and planned for, but most importantly, try and try again. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get included in chambers. There's just a variety of factors, and so keep trying.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Toby.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Vivian, that's a really, really good point to raise. And the only thing I'd add to that is that just because a firm isn't ranked doesn't mean they're not on our radar. And we're constantly looking at thousands and thousands of firms, and we review every submission that we receive. So just because a firm isn't ranked one year, there's a high chance that they'll have been flagged up for next year, and that next year is going to be the key, or the following year. So we're always open to providing feedback as well, and giving firms some sort of idea as to what has happened and where they are.
Toby, once I'm in chambers, do I have to resubmit every year? Do you toss me out after a while? How do getting in is one thing, staying there is another.
Yeah, no. So we do encourage firms to submit every year. As I said, just because we place that emphasis on client feedback, we want to make sure that we're getting consistent levels of feedback. So it is very important. Obviously, if you're in the rankings, then other firms, they'll know that you're there. They'll be commenting on you when we conduct our calls with other law firms. But it's not a guarantee that you'll stay in there once you're in there. You do have to prove that you merit continued recognition.
Okay. I think there's some good advice there to the smaller and mid-sized firms. And hearing Vivian and Toby, I heard be prepared, really invest in your submission, alert your references, and let your references know what's going on. And they're your advocates, and they need to respond to the Chambers folks when their editorial team calls. This is not a big firm thing, so small firms, feel free to submit. And this vetting process, Toby, is incredible. 150 researchers, 20 references. You guys really do your homework.
We have thousands and thousands, but we're very fortunate in the people that we speak to. They're wonderful resources for us.
Terrific. Now, I'm going to turn over to Best Lawyers, and let's talk a little bit about how you guys build your list and whether or not an attorney or a firm interested in being involved, can they influence this process? So, Elizabeth,
sure.
I'll come.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the lawyer rankings first, because that's where everything begins for us. And what I would say to firms is the most important thing for getting a lawyer recognized is to confirm that they have been nominated in their primary area of practice, and that their information is correct on the nomination. So oftentimes we will see new nominees come in, and maybe they have been nominated in 5 or 7 areas of practice. Realistically, that's probably not 5 or 7 areas that you are known as an expert in. So if you dilute your nomination with too many practice areas, we can see that votes come in and they're spread across the board. So these are kinds of questions that you can always come and ask us. You can ask myself or our research team to look and make sure that any lawyers who are hoping to be recognized and haven't in the past are nominated first and foremost in their primary area of practice. Just like Vivian mentioned, the threshold to get included the first year is always the highest, or the first time. So if someone is not recognized the first year, we do track all of their votes historically, and we collect them to review each year. So it is more difficult to be included the first year you're nominated. You may need to accumulate some more votes before being recognized. But that kind of information is also information we will share with firms. So if any firms out there have a lawyer, a partner, who they're just scratching their head over, why hasn't this person been recognized, please reach out to us and ask us to do some research. And then we can help work with the firms to make sure their nomination is correct. And if it is simply the case that we have not received enough peer feedback, we can always ask voters to give more feedback and hope that that pushes them over the threshold for being included. We are happy to do that. But outside of that, for our lawyer reviews, there's really not a lot else firms can do. So sending us matters, sending case histories really is not important for our lawyer accolades because it is all peer review. And so it's really what the attorneys have to say about each other's work that matters most. Sorry.
Yeah, a quick question here.
Sure.
Generally, how many votes does it require for a lawyer to be included in Best Lawyers?
That's a good question, and unfortunately it varies. We don't have a hard, fast number. It's based on the practice area and their location. So if you practice in a very niche area, then we recognize that there aren't as many voters to give feedback on that. Now, if you are a corporate lawyer in Manhattan, the number of votes is going to be higher because we have so many voters giving feedback. So in that case, if only a couple people recommend your work, that's not enough to automatically push you into the rankings list.
I imagine the general commercial litigation category is a crowded one.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm curious, what's to stop me from mounting a campaign and reaching out and contacting some of the names I recognize on your list and say, hey, nominate me. Mm-hmm. And then go muster votes from people. Do you have that kind of thing going on?
We do hear about that every now and then, and we put a number of preventative measures in place to try to give red flags when we think that people are soliciting for votes or voters are only going in for a specific person. So in our research, both the candidate is given a number, so that's based on how many votes they get and what the votes are, but also each individual voter is given their own weight. So this tells me if you go in and you are giving everyone the absolute highest praise or the absolute lowest praise, then your value is lowered because you're probably not giving a unbiased feedback on the candidate's work. If you're a voter who goes in and gives a variety of scores, then you have a higher weight, and we take that into more consideration. We also have flags that if somebody has received maybe 1 or 2 votes each year, and then all of a sudden they're like 17 or 20 people who gave them all a 5, I get those kinds of reports as well. And it doesn't happen often, but we do investigate those just to try to make sure that, again, nobody is out there really soliciting for votes, because that undermines the whole integrity of the process.
Interesting. And how many, so that's on the individual lawyer side, and then you talked about the firm thing you got going on with U.S. News. A little different?
Yes, it is a little different. So submission packets for best law firms go out in January, and the primary request we have to firms are to submit clients. There is also a very short law firm survey that goes out, but that is really more to help us collect demographic information on the firm and changes the firm has seen within the last year. The client submissions are due in March, And then we spend 2 months contacting clients to get their feedback on the law firm's work in specific locations and practice areas. And then that feedback all goes into our analysis for best law firms rankings. So my advice to firms is if you are looking to improve in your best law firms rankings, the first step is to make sure that you are submitting clients, particularly in practice areas that you are looking for recognition in. And if you have any questions on maybe why a specific ranking came out the way it did, or the participation rate of your clients, we are happy to share that information. So we certainly won't say what the client's feedback was, but if you're trying to strategize which clients to submit, we can say, this person didn't respond, so maybe don't submit them again next year. Or while we are in the phase of reaching out to clients and you want us to contact them again, you hear that a client missed the email or missed a phone call and would like us to try again, we're always happy to do that as well.
Great advice, great guidance. How many lawyers would you guesstimate are in Best Lawyers altogether in the United States?
Sure. So our current recognized list is about 54,000 lawyers, and that is 4.5% of practicing attorneys in the United States. We do recommend that you wait to nominate a lawyer until they've been in practice for 10 years. And personally, I tend to advise firms to only nominate partners, mainly for internal political reasons, because you could nominate a senior associate who is really doing great work, who's out there networking, making a name for themselves, and based on their effort, they could get recognized, when perhaps a more senior partner who prefers to not network and really just focuses on their work themselves might not get recognized as quickly. So,
now, Elizabeth, I'm a little confused now there because you said that the list is determined among the current folks on the list, the current best lawyers by the next wave of best lawyers, but now you're talking about nomination. So I can nominate and have my attorney's name thrown in the mix for voting? Is that how it works?
Not for voting, just as a candidate.
Okay.
So any lawyer who's in private practice in the United States can be nominated for consideration. But we recommend that you...
Correct? You
I'm
can
sorry?
self-nominate?
We request that you do not self-nominate.
Okay. But a partner at your firm could nominate you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So you can influence the process if you think you should be on that list and and you're not. You can do some things to call yourself out to best lawyers and get on the ballot, as it were.
Absolutely. And if I could give any advice to take away from today is any questions or confusions, please reach out to us. Our editors answer our mainline phone call. So whenever you call Best Lawyers, you will speak directly to a research editor, and they will be happy to look up information and help you troubleshoot any questions or concerns you may have about your lawyers or your firm.
You know, that's one thing that struck me about both Best Lawyers and Chambers at our program for LMA is how willing you guys are to help firms who want to involve themselves with your group, and I think that's great that you make yourself open and available, and so folks on the call, take advantage of this stuff if you're interested in pursuing these recognitions. Toby, I'll come back to you. How many lawyers in the United States would you guesstimate to be recognized in Chambers USA?
I don't know exactly, but it's definitely in the tens of thousands. The book itself is over 2,000 pages long, so yeah, in the tens of thousands, definitely.
Okay, very good. Before we move on, let me move on to our next question here, and thank you very much for being so open and talking about the processes you use to identify the best lawyers and the leading lawyers. And before we move this area, What misconceptions do you find, Elizabeth, that lawyers, managing partners, marketing people have about what you're doing?
Absolutely. I guess I would say that the biggest misconception is that best lawyers exist in an ivory tower, and that the decisions that we make are not open to questions. And what I mean by that is we don't have a contest your rankings process or contest your lawyer recognition, but please, please, please call us, email us, ask questions that you have, because there could be a very simple reason as to why something didn't happen, and we can work together to ensure for the next edition that whatever the holdup or hiccup was, we can work together to try to resolve. So that's my biggest tidbit.
Great. And Toby, what misconceptions do you think most people have about chambers?
Well, we mentioned already the idea that it's a big law publication, and also that just because you don't get ranked in your first year of submitting, there's no point doing it ever again. Those are big ones, but I guess the other ones are going to be that it's based on who you know and your reputation, which is something that I sort of mentioned earlier. And I guess the other one is that we are with real monsters when it comes to the deadlines, the submission deadlines. We won't accept any that come in past the deadline. We're really not. We totally understand that there will be situations where submissions will come in late, and that will be out of the firm's control. Just the other day I had a firm miss the deadline because there was a massive power outage in their building, and so they couldn't actually get any of their computers to work. And the things like that, we're not going to we've never penalised firms for providing late submissions, and it really is up to you as firms to decide whether you are going to be able to get your submissions into us on time. We would always encourage you to stick to the deadlines, because in reality your firm will get the best out of the research process if you provide your referees in on time, and if you provide your submissions in on time. If it comes in late, though, we will always review the submissions, and we will always try our best to speak to referees that come in late.
Boy, both of you are remarkably approachable. We'll share emails and phone numbers at the end of the call, and I'm looking at the time, and it's flying by. We got about 12 minutes left. So let me move on and come back to Ariel, who's in-house trying to make sense of all this. And I'm going to ask you, Ariel, what advice you might give to a managing partner who's trying to figure out, which directories are right for our firm. What advice might you offer?
First of all, I would ask a bigger picture question, whether a submission, an accolade is the right answer for what you're looking to do. So that's obviously a much bigger picture question, but I would want every managing partner on this call to understand that this is tough. There are a lot of submissions, but that also means that you can get easily lost in the crowd, not only by choosing a submission that doesn't make a dent, but also because the competition is quite fierce. So to me, it's about thinking about what your clients care about, thinking about what your clients want you to know about, thinking about what you're good at, and mapping the awards back to that. And then one other very important bucket, which is thinking about your own resources and if you're using them wisely. One of the constant themes that I hear from other marketing, business development, other professionals at law firms that are tasked with this is that so much of their time is going to answering submissions requests, and there's a huge opportunity cost to that. My colleagues feel that they're spending time on submissions that don't make sense for their firm, and it's taking them away from the activities that they think are more important for their firm.
Okay. Vivian, any guidance you might offer a firm trying to figure it out?
Well, I completely echo everything you just said, and I feel like there's another question too, is to understand, once you know which, well, before you even know, but what are the needs that you have that you're trying to get in front of, or what are the audiences? And there's different reasons for different types of lists. And so getting in front of clients, if you're looking to improve lateral recruitment opportunities, then there could be some legal lists and other means for that to happen. Why are you doing this? And so then, as Ariel said, you want to have all of that established to help you then and have those reasons drive the types of lists that you can then cull down from those 1,200 or so that are opportunities that are out there, whether they're regional, whether they are national, whether they are trade related, or minority focused, or if they are for recruiting purposes, best places to work. There's so many different reasons why you might want to be on a particular list, and have that defined, that strategy defined before you invest in those resources and time, because they do take a lot of time, and that's something that a lot of the legal marketers who are on this call fully recognize, that they are often tasked with putting these all together, and when maybe they could be doing something differently that's better suited for the firm, and it might not be, because I've done myself plenty of these nominations simply for the reason of morale, and I don't find that that's the best use of time. The managing partners or the firm leadership want an attorney to feel good that they have been nominated, but they might not be the best person to be nominated or have the best reasons, yet still we go forth with the effort because they want to improve the morale. It's not a bad reason, but certainly not the best. So
those of you who know me know that I'm not shy, and I have pretty strong opinions about these rankings and directories and listings, and to be bluntly honest, I think many of them are a play to lawyer ego. And we're feeding the lawyer ego, putting your name in lights. Nobody sees this. Nobody sees the directory. Clients don't use it. It's simply a play to lawyer ego, and we know lawyers do have egos that need feeding from time to time. Listening to you guys, I think being strategic, being proactive, not reactive, as these opportunities to be listed places present themselves. These people are pinging your lawyers all the time, sending them letters, making them feel important. And in many cases, I think these directories are little more than a play to that lawyer ego, often pay to play. We talked about that at the get-go. Is this listing a pay to play situation? Who reads it? Who consults it? Talk to your clients about what they reference. And I read a lot of surveys out there that suggest that clients don't pay much attention to these directories. It's still a people game, and they're looking at referrals through people they know, like, and trust. And they might reference a directory to fortify a decision or cross-check a decision. I think they have a role to play, chambers and best lawyers at the top of the heap. Super lawyers, who's who, not so sure people pay much attention to them. Martindale Hubbell. When I got into this profession, it was the granddaddy. I remember when my dad got his AV rating, you would have thought he died and went to heaven. And Martindale doesn't seem to have the clout that it once did. Vivian, is Martindale dead?
We haven't done any work with Martindale in any capacity in, I would say, a minimum of 5 or 8 years. I can't even remember the last time we had any dealings with a client who was interested in Martindale. Actually, let me take that back, and this is anecdotal. There is a small firm in Florida where I was talking to a marketing director there, and he did say it was important to their lawyers for their particular practice. So it's very, very specific for them to be AV rated. But other than that, zilch.
I think I'll come to you, Ariel, and what's your firm's take on Martindale, and what's your personal take on Martindale?
Sure. So I'd say similar to Vivian, at Paul Hastings, we haven't done anything with Martindale Hubble for probably about a decade. So at Paul Hastings, Martindale is definitely dead, and the headstone's got some ivy growing over it.
Boy, that must have been a controversial decision at your firm. I'm sure
again, having these conversations is never easy, because there are always people that are ranked in something and then feel it's important to carry on. It just goes back to, for me, that idea of using resources wisely and the opportunity cost.
I was reading an article the other day, 40% of the AmLaw 200 have dropped their Martindale listings. 40%. Most lawyers don't realize you can still petition for your AV/BV ratings without subscribing to Martindale. You can still claim that on your biographical profile without subscribing to Martindale. You can, there is a peer review process there. If you go to Martindale's website, you can take a look on what it takes to become a BV. And if you think you've met those requirements, go through the submission process. Often you get it. And same thing on the AV, 10 years in practice, and put it out there. Be proactive. If you think you should be on a ranking or a listing and you're not, go for it. Don't be shy. I think we've heard from Toby and Elizabeth both. You don't be shy. Talk to us. We want to help. And it's not just for big law. I think Martindale is dead, and if you're not a lawyer, you probably never even heard of it. There are better places to spend your money, and I'm often suggesting firms take a look at that commitment to Martindale and ask if they can use that money better other places. I think this is our final question, and that's final advice. I'm looking at our time. We don't have much of it left. So let me start with you, Toby, and any advice you might give to marketing people. Anything we haven't yet talked about?
I mean, it's similar to what we were saying earlier. If you have questions, then please do feel free to reach out to Chambers, anyone at Chambers, to either me or one of my deputy editors. We appreciate that not everything is going to be as straightforward as it should be, and there are many differences in terms of practice area definitions and things like that. So we appreciate that it can be very complicated at times, but we're always willing to help give some guidance on best practices and on point you in the right direction if you have questions.
So pick up the phone, give us a call. Your advice, Elizabeth?
Sure. Obviously, very similar to what Toby said, but it also doesn't stop with specific research questions. If there's anything that you are using on our site or our platform, or anything in your day-to-day that you think, man, it would be a lot easier if Best Lawyers gave me this. We really like to hear that kind of feedback, because we are always evolving to be more user-friendly, make things easier for you. So please let us know, and we will do our best to make your jobs easier.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Here's some additional resources. Our managing partner website, we always have a bunch of stuff. If you haven't checked us out, we try to assemble really great articles and white papers and checklists for smaller and mid-sized law firms. The Remsen Group website as well. I got a lot of stuff about marketing and business development there. Jaffe, Vivian, you have some stuff about the rankings and directories on your website, correct?
Definitely. We have a good setup there for a lot of resources, and please stop by and take a look.
And there's Best Lawyers, Chambers, two of the best directories out there, I believe. And I want to thank our panel. You guys were great, and I think provided some really good insight to our listeners. Here are direct dial numbers, email addresses to Toby, Vivian, Ariel, and Elizabeth. And all of them invite you to contact them if you have questions, would like to continue the conversation. Of course, feel free to call me as well here at the Remsen Group and the Managing Partner Forum. So Toby, Vivian, Ariel, Elizabeth, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and your contributions on our webinar. And finally, we will be sending you a little later today a link to a little short survey to get your feedback on today's program. And really important to us. We're asking about what you like, what you didn't like, topics going forward. We really do value that feedback, so please take a few minutes, tell us what you thought, and we will listen to what you have to say. Here's my contact information, and feel free to reach out to us at any time. And let me kick things back to Dalen Fortney, our Mistress of Ceremonies.
Fantastic. Again, thanks to everyone for your participation. As we mentioned before, the sessions are recorded and will be archived on the MPF website at managingpartnerforum.org. As always, we value your feedback about this session and your input for future programs. Please be sure to complete the brief online survey that John spoke about. And again, thank you so much for your attendance this afternoon.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.